a state of emergency by the state of Utah. So we do have the ability for people to also be at City Hall, which is where I'm at. And in our city council chambers, there is a camera and sound available there. And so I don't know if anyone is in that room. We also have room in the administrative conference room where James Duckett is located. So we have that ability, and we will just remind everyone, and I'll do this a couple times, that if you are here and wish to say something, especially obviously when it comes to your item, then you would just need to say so in the chat function, which is down in the middle lower end of the screen, and you click on that, and you just can send a message to the group or raise your hand, and not like this, although we'll watch for that. But you can also raise your hand in the Zoom, but we would ask you to do it through the chat and say which item it is you would like to speak on when we get to that point. And I'll remind everyone of that. We've muted everyone to start with. Council members, you can unmute yourself at any time. We, of course, welcome your comments or corrections, especially if the mayor misses something or says something wrong. So please jump in anytime. Any questions so far, council members? Adam, any changes, Adam, to the agenda before we get started here?
Yeah, we do have one change. I just point out that item number 7, there was a corrected background to that item. And so an addendum went out to the agenda. So when we get to item 7, we'll just want to make sure we refer to the correct and updated background. But other than that, we're good to go. Okay.
Very good. Well, then we will open the meeting. We have with us, I believe on Zoom, I see you there, Thomas Fisk from the Grace Episcopal Church. Did I say your name right this time, Thomas?
Yes, you did, Mayor. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
We'd love to have you offer an invitation or thought representing your church, your faith group, and of course the St. George Area Interfaith Council. So thank you, Thomas, for being here. Reverend. I should call you Reverend.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
That's what I say.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, giver of life and health, comfort and relieve all who suffer from the coronavirus, and give your power of healing to all who minister to their needs. Give to the doctors and the nurses and the first responders calm, strength, and wisdom. Give to Mike, Matt, and Chris, our congressional leaders in Washington, patience and wisdom to meet the challenges that are ahead. We pray for Donald, our president. We ask, Lord, that you give to John, Greg, Danielle, Brian, Michelle, Jimmy, sound wisdom and strong leadership as they continue to serve all who reside in St. George. And we ask finally that you bless the staff of the City Council and bless us all for your name's sake in this trying and scary time, through Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Reverend, thank you so much. That was most appropriate and most appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to and the effort to name people by name. Thank you.
You're welcome. I got to go paint my kitchen now. So,
Reverend, can we thank you as well? Thank you for your support of the community and offering your sanctuary as with the soup kitchen and so many other things that you do for our community.
You're just a little bit of news here. Our executive committee met today, and we elected to not charge Switch Point any rent for the duration of the pandemic, and probably give them their last month's rent back. So,
well, that is amazing. Jimmy might want to make some comments about that.
No, we really appreciate that. And I wanted to echo what the mayor said. I've always been taught to be specific in your prayers, and that specific mention of our names did not go unnoticed. I really appreciate you doing that, and take all the prayers we can get. So thank you, and thank you for what we can do with the soup kitchen down there. It's very appreciated as well.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to leave the meeting now, Mayor. So
You're welcome. Thank you. Folks, before we go any further, there's, I believe, a view of the flag from our conference room. Let's join and say the Pledge of Allegiance together. Jimmy, will you do your best to lead us in that today?
Absolutely. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
If you would all please arise and face the flag. If you would repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jimmy. And thanks, everyone. Appreciate everyone being here. That prayer really got me. You know, I was telling Councilwoman Michelle Randall last night, I don't know, you know, in times like these where we've had so many things going on, we've had a lot of things closed or restrictions going on because of the pandemic. I don't know what all has worked, but I will take any of it. I'll take it. The social distancing and the restrictions and closures are tough, but whatever's happened, I'll also take the prayers, and especially if someone is so kind as to pray that specifically, as you said, Jimmy. You know, anytime someone names you, it sure feels good. And I think prayers and fasting that have gone on in this community and worldwide, I don't think that goes unnoticed. It certainly is noticed and felt by me. And I've just had the feeling in the last even 24 hours, as my wife and I were talking, that, you know, it feels like we've turned a corner. And while this may go on in one way or another for another, you know, year and a half, it's not going to go on, I don't think, the way it has. I think we've turned a corner, and for lots of reasons. I'm glad for that. And you know, as you know, council, because we talked about it offline individually, you know, golf will be at our 4 courses, our municipal courses, open tomorrow. And according to Mark Mortensen and Colby Cowan, we might have a couple golfers tomorrow, maybe like 500. So it's full. I don't know if any of you could get a tee time if you wanted one. But anyway, it's busy. There are some safeguards, some restrictions. We're trying to limit it to Washington County residents only. But I will tell you, we're not gonna card people. We're not checking IDs. If there's some that come, they're gonna come, and you know, that's fine. We're trying to guide that. If they ask us, we're telling them, please, it's got to be Washington County residents only for now. Again, I would hope we could relax that when the stay-at-home order is also, or directive is lifted by the governor, which I hope happens. I hope happens May 1st. So there's that. Council, if you're okay with this, I'm just going to say this up front. Adam and I have spoken about it. We've spoken about it with Shane, and we'd like to also, in a signal of some return to, you know, to caution, but a little bit more of a return to some normalcy. We'd like to propose that we reopen the skateboard park, the bike park, the Snake Hollow, effective as soon as possible. So that would be probably by tomorrow at 5 p.m. Certainly so that they could enjoy those 2 parks this weekend. And we're going to get some additional signage that's really more fixed, you know, some more permanent signage, because this may be a while that we need to kind of even outside do some social distancing. So we're going to, as soon as we get that, we'll probably look at Pioneer Park. We're not going to open Pioneer Park tomorrow or Saturday. We'd like to stress and have at the entry points there this signage that just says, hey, please maintain some social distancing and try not to congregate. There are some natural choke points in that and other places as well. So if you're okay with that, council, that's what Adam and I would propose, is that we maybe wait, it might be another week, but we'll get these signs up on Pioneer Park. But for the other two parks, we would propose that by the end of the day tomorrow, Friday, that those are open. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Jimmy,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's time.
Yeah.
you okay,
Yep.
Jimmy?
You're putting me on the spot.
Well, if you don't want to, we won't, Jimmy.
Well, no, I just look at it as all the other trails that we have, and I'm sorry, but I wish it were open sooner than that. I don't mind putting a sign up. It's like we've been dealing with at our mortuary. I'm cautioning people, hey, govern yourself. You understand the dangers here. So, don't come, or here's the hand sanitizer, or here's masks, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like being on the rest of the trail. So that's, I didn't want to sit on here and say that, but
You're fine. You're fine.
I'd like to see that open really tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just me, but maybe
No,
I'm
you're okay.
in the minority here. It is outside. I see people up there when I go by. They're up there on the Sugarloaf.
Which people need to know. We're not arresting people or even
Right.
giving them a citation for that. We're not doing that. It's really just, there have been so many people that congregate, especially on the Sugarloaf, Dixie Rock, whatever we call it, and several other places. We just thought we would still like to send a message that even outside, if you're getting too close, the virus is still active. It's not going to spread as much, we hope, but it's, still active. We did have a new case today. It's great that we only had one, but there are about 140 new cases up in the Wasatch Front. And so, we still want to be cautious and not necessarily say, hey, everybody come to St. George today and bring the virus with you. So
Well, I don't expect us to make an announcement, but you go by there and see all those barricades and that sign. To me, it just sends the wrong message. But even if we could do a temporary signs that says, hey, remember social distancing, whatever, there are some, even some poster board and take down the barricades, and then people can govern themselves there. Again, they're just across the street on the trail, just as bad, and on the other trails. That's one that I guess I wish I could see people up there, and I see people up there. They're just doing it against the rules, and you hate to be sending that message as well.
yeah. Well,
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I understand. I don't see people congregating on the trails like they congregate at the Dixie Rock.
Mayor, I know that's true what you're saying, and I also agree with Jimmy. Could we compromise? And if we skip the weekend, then we're kind of skipping. If we keep it closed through the weekend, we're skipping those people that come down for the weekend, and maybe we reopen it for, knowing that citizens are the ones that are going to use it more during the week. We try to reopen it a little bit earlier in the week next week instead of waiting a full week. We reopen it Monday or Tuesday.
I think, we can do whatever you wish. Where there's still a stay-at-home directive, I don't want people to think that even in St. George, where we don't have as many cases, that everything's fine, because it's not fine yet.
I know
So,
that's true, and I agree with that, but I think if we do maybe what Jimmy's saying and just put up some temporary signs and permanent signs, we also send a good message to our citizens that we're trying to do everything in our power to open things up to them that make their life in quarantine a little bit easier, and that's really a place where they can go and really spread out, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the red rocks, and safely distance. So if we waited until first of next week, when, we always worry about travel right now and so many people coming down, and I know that's a real concern in that space. I know it's like such a highly used space, but if we put up even some temporary signs, but I'll support whatever, but I know this is a hard call.
Even right at the bridge,
I
if we had a sign right at the bridge saying, hey, this is the choke point here, or at the Narrows.
I
Well, that's
think
a
that
lot.
You know,
they could get up some signs, but to have anything that's going to stay there more than about 10 minutes in the wind that we have right now, it's probably going to take, a couple days to do that. I don't necessarily think we have to wait a week. I think that's not a bad
well,
idea. Danielle, I think it's
what
not
if
a
we-
bad idea to go with,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
after the weekend, maybe Monday or something. Adam, what do you think? Can we accommodate that? And what's your advice?
Yeah, we can do any of that. We can open whenever, we can handle that any way you'd like. I think we're ready to go.
Go ahead, Brian.
I think if we watched it and, even one or two of us on the council or whatever, take a couple of trips up there this next week. Any of you see they're congregating, then we readjust. But I think we give it a shot and keep an eye on it. And if we have to shut it back down, but I think if we put it out there that look, you guys need to be adults and take care of this, and we put it out like we did the golf courses. They got a great message. I got great reviews coming back from that, saying we did it very, very tactfully and very, very well said. And I think if we do that, then we can, keep an eye on it. And if we have to readjust, we got to readjust.
Greg, you have similar feelings?
Yeah, I do. My thoughts echo those of the other city council members. I'd really like to see us move forward with opening things up and let people govern themselves with it. Make sure that we put out the signs and have the warnings and things we need to do to take the precautions. But I'd like to see it to give the opportunity for people to get out and, get out in nature and be out there.
So, Adam, why don't we just see if our staff can by Monday, if they can have even some temporary signs up in the spots you and I talked about, the Pioneer Park, kind of the key entry points. And even if they're a little temporary in nature, and then maybe by the week's end, we have some better ones. But if they could do that by Monday, let's just kind of plan that we'll open Pioneer Park Monday. Is everyone okay with that? Kind of a compromise to get through the weekend, give our staff some time to get at least some signage up. We want to also, we want to have the verbiage be simple, just a short and sweet message. David will work on that with Shane. We've already got him kind of working on it, and they'll run it by Adam and I just to make sure that we're on the same page. But it'll be short and sweet. Just keep in mind to the social distancing, something very much just like that. Just try not to congregate, and then, like you said, Brian, we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. We just want to try to, especially for a little bit here. Some of these things don't need to last long, but this might be a message that we keep doing for a month and a half. I'm not really sure. We'll see. The last thing that probably they'll bring back to full kind of, normal level will be mass gatherings. And not that this is mass gathering, but it could.
While
Okay.
we're making signs and thinking about this, we probably ought to be looking at like the pickleball courts for signs for them when we do think we're ready to open those, but have them ready. The parks.
That's exactly what Shane's going to do.
Okay.
We're going to make all these signs. They'll be all the same. And so I would see that again. I think with pickleball and maybe some of our other parks, we're going to have to wait just a little bit and see. But I would think that within the next few weeks, we might be opening up those as well. Again, the stay-at-home order. We'll watch that. If that changes, if it happens sooner, but we're probably 2 weeks away at the most, I would guess. And there may be even some more leeway given at that time. So we'll be in further discussions with the health department and with the state on what that means. But I think probably a couple weeks' time, we'll see some bigger changes.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Would you say that, so are the public park closures, are those tied to the state initiative? So like, I live
Yes.
across the street from a park, so they are tied to that. So
Yes,
that
they
needs to lift before we'll open them?
Again, the parks are not closed generally. We do have a few parks that we've closed because you kind of can't have, like the bike park. How do you not close the park? There's no playground equipment. It's all playground. Really, the issue, Greg, is tied to park equipment, playground equipment. And so the All Abilities Park, Thunder Junction, for example, it's just so equipment rich, if you will. How do you keep the park open and not and not have them on the equipment? So that park is closed, and the bike park is closed, and the skateboard park is closed. But I think that that's why the other two could reopen really easily, the bike park, the skateboard park. But I think Thunder Junction, we might have to wait a little bit on that. And when I say a little bit might be 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll kind of see. But your neighborhood park is open, other than the few exceptions.
Okay.
And our intention, honestly, Adam and I and Shane, was to keep Pioneer Park open. But there was just so much congregating. We thought we better not, because of in the height of this, we just weren't sure how much exposing there might be of the virus. So at this point, I think you're all right. I think we ought to be able to send the message that it's okay to be there if we're still minding our social distancing.
So since Brian brought up pickleball, I was going to take a win and go away. What's our concern with pickleball?
Well, you pick up a ball, you exchange rackets. There's a little bit more touch there than there are in other things. So our thought was we maybe wait just a little bit on that and see. And again, I don't really know that we want to send a message to everyone just yet. It snowed in Salt Lake today, I heard. I don't really want to send a message, come on down and play pickleball. But I think in a couple weeks, if there's not a stay safe, stay home directive, to me, that changes everything. So again, and I don't even know that we have to necessarily wait that long, but it kind of feels like it might make more sense once there's not that directive. If that were to change in a week instead of 2 weeks, it's always possible it will. Or if we're given a little bit more flexibility. And again, they didn't ask us to close pickleball courts specifically, but they did mention kind of generically sports courts. So that was kind of our thinking, Jimmy. But we can revisit all these things if the data continues to show what it's showing at the moment, and we don't seem to have a different spike than Northern Utah has. If there really is we're on the decline, then I think, we have to go with what the medical folks are saying and what the data is saying. And I think we saw a signal from the governor a couple of days ago that we might be entering what he calls the stabilization phase, and that the urgency phase may be over. And he signaled that could change in the next day or two, right, David Cordero? He was listening to that, watching that. David says yes. Yep. Okay. Well, if you're all right with that, let's plan with those three things in mind for now, and then we'll revisit the other. And we don't have to wait necessarily for a Thursday meeting. In fact, to that point, as we proceed here, Adam, did we decide we were not going to meet next week?
That's correct.
But we will meet on the 5th Thursday, the 30th.
In 2 weeks. Yep.
Council, so please make that note. We will cancel next week's meeting, and we will meet on the 5th Thursday, still in this format. With that,
Got it.
okay, and we'll have Christina cancel next week's meeting, and we'll have her send out of course, the agenda and the Zoom invite to everyone for the 30th meeting. It will probably not be a real long meeting, but we do have a few things to cover. So, yes. was
Just
there-
one other thing, in fairness to you and Adam and the things that have been going on and stuff coming down from the state is, and I've been trying to explain this to people, we are, a subdivision of the state. We are, really governed by the state and the state government. And we all know that there's always the possibility of the state and the legislature coming in and telling us what to do. And by state constitution, they probably could. And so, people need to understand that we are taking what the governor says seriously, and we're trying to, follow those orders as they come down from the state, because we are a subdivision of the state, and they have done it before, and they, we're constantly battling that, hey, leave us alone. And so we got to kind of walk that line. So I want to make that clear that I understand that, and that what you and Adam have been trying to do, and in consultation with the council, has been phenomenal. And I hope people understand that.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. It is, it's a lot, there's a lot of moving pieces. I think, as you all know, the legislature called itself to order this morning by conference like this. I think they're on Zoom. I'm not sure. And there's 21 bills that I know of that they're considering, and they're all in one way or another tied to COVID-19. Really interesting things there. They've announced that they can be in session up to 10 days. I do know that it will go into next week. And so there's some interesting things on kind of both sides of it. And it centers around who has the control. And so good point, Jimmy. Right now, the legislature saying, well, wait a minute, we want to make sure we have central control, but we don't want to have the governor to have too much control. We want to have a little control. And we don't want to have the local health departments have too much control, but we like how some of them have done it. So there's a lot of really interesting things going on, and it's understandable, it's understandable. And I know there are people on both sides of this, and then a whole lot of people kind of in the middle that are just trying to do the best they can. And I really think most people are trying to follow advice. They're reading, they're watching things, and then everyone, it kind of has you scratching your head saying, do we really need to do it this way? And but I think hopefully what we've done is learn some things. We've bought some time for the healthcare industry to be more ready, to be ready in case there is another surge, and there probably will be. Hopefully it's in the fall or the winter, and we have a little more experience, a few more beds, a few more personal protective equipment and devices, and maybe some treatments that we know work better. And we won't have a vaccine by then, but we'll kind of know what to do. There's some Asian countries that have dealt with things like this, and African countries. They've kind of learned some things, and we're going to learn some things as well. And social distancing is one of the easy things. Hand washing, as dumb as that sounds, is huge. I've had several doctors say to me, we are not very good at those basic things, and this will cause us to be a little bit more conscientious. So, but I appreciate everyone's advice and support, and we'll make some changes, and we'll advocate for some, as we see it. If these numbers continue to be what they are, or even less, we will be advocating for local ability to say we want to reopen restaurants, for example, with maybe some limitations on how many people you have and how much square footage. We'll advocate for that unless you give us other direction. But I think we're all on a similar page. We'd like to see business be able to reopen as long as it's deemed appropriate, and we can push those limits a little bit. I think if we have the few cases continue that we've had. We've only had about 60 cases in Southwest Utah, and about 36 of those have recovered. There's only a couple cases in the hospital right now. We've had only one death as serious as that is to lose one person. We've only had one death in Southwest Utah, and that one was from Iron County. So I think we're on the right side of it at this point, and we've learned a lot. I do want to say one more thing. Several of you know this, but we have cooperated with a group put together by Silicon Slopes and the state of Utah. It's a public-private partnership called testutah.com. The Utah Test Challenge is another name they've used. But if you go to testutah.com, I'd encourage everyone that hears this to go to that website and take an assessment. If they tell you that you might want to get tested, we now, as of tomorrow, will have a test location in St. George that's with this group. It will be located just outside of JCPenney in the parking lot. The tents are already up. It's a drive-through, but you got to do on your smartphone or the computer, you got to do the assessment first. They'll issue you a QR code if they suggest you be tested. The rules, the thresholds have kind of come down. They're testing more people. They want to have data. They want to get people tested. This is free of charge. We're still struggling to get the staffing, but we do have some staffing, at least for the short term, volunteers, some medical people and some other volunteers. And Shirlane Quayle is heading this up really for the city. Chief Whitehead has an officer there. We have some extra school resource officers that aren't as busy right now, as you know. So they are over there. We're providing them during the time that they're open. Right now, they're probably going to be open from 12 to 7 on weekdays, and maybe Saturday as well. I think they're going to be open Saturday as well this week, not Sundays at this point. And if we have more need and we have the staffing, we'll extend those hours. But the whole idea is to get more people tested, even if they're not sure, they may have been exposed. Let's test them. And that will go into the state Department of Health database, and they'll be able to track, trace, and have better data for where hotspots might be or where they may develop. More data is good, I think. And so I want to thank Adam and Shirlane and Kyle, Chief Whitehead. Also our parks, we've got some parks people have been helping. Streets have been awesome, helping to secure the tents with some concrete blocks they have. And I'm sure others that are going to maybe be helping to staff that. So I know that's a lot of stuff, but I wanted you to know about that. They've come, the health department supports this. The hospital supports it, although they can't really help. They're doing their own tent, but theirs is a little different. It's similar. I believe it's the same test, but a little bit different in terms of the process. And if they can, they're charging to try to recoup some of their costs. This is being provided by donations through Silicon Slopes. So it's really a cool public-private partnership. The hospital will maybe be helping us with some staffing, and we've reached out to Revere Health and some other private medical folks that are helping to staff it. So any questions about that before we get on to the meeting? Okay. If you have any questions after, just reach out to me or Shirlane.
Mayor, I
Yes.
asked you this earlier, but maybe I'll just point it out. So if people have questions about it, a lot of people have asked me about antibody testing. So just to point out that this is not antibody testing, and it doesn't include the antibody testing. We don't have access to that yet.
No, but they hope to. And if they do, what that does is that will help prevent in the future. It identifies that you've had it, and then it can help in the development of treatments and vaccine.
Yeah, thank you.
So that they hope to do that. So thanks for pointing that out, Danielle. I have two proclamations I'd like to read quickly, and then we'll get to the printed agenda. This first one is for Earth Day. And we do this is symbolic perhaps mostly, but want to make sure that people know that we do care about the world we live in. Whereas humankind is facing tremendous global challenges, and whereas all people of the earth from all walks of life have a right to a healthy environment, and whereas protecting our species is crucial to the survival of this planet and its inhabitants, and whereas it is understood that sustainability will only be achieved by meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of future generations, and whereas it is more important than ever to cooperate internationally and defend the environmental progress that has been heretofore gained, and whereas Earth Day is an annual reminder of constant need for environmental activism, stewardship, and sustainability efforts, now therefore, I, Jonathan T. Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George, do hereby join with community members and our City Council in proclaiming Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020 as Earth Day. So again, this is a proclamation. Just wanted to read that, and I've signed it and affixed our city seal. And we do appreciate the efforts that are made by many to, and I believe by our city. And I'll read another proclamation that kind of highlights some of the ways we do that. So thank you, Christina, for helping us pull that together. And we'll provide that to the people that asked us to do that if they are so desiring. The second one is Arbor Day. We do this as well every year. In 1872, Sterling J. Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Wow. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas the City of St. George recognizes the contributions a healthy community forest has to clean the air and water, reduce stormwater runoff, enhance energy conservation, improve public health and safety, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our city increase property value, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the City of St. George has now been recognized as a Tree City USA city for the last 24 consecutive years by the National Arbor Day Foundation. And whereas the City of St. George is committed to plant at least, does anyone know how many trees annually? 500. We're committed to plant 500 trees annually each year to renew our urban forest. Now, therefore, I, Jonathan T. Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George, do hereby proclaim April 26th, 2020 as Arbor Day, along with the City Council of St. George. So again, I appreciate Shane Moore. We all love Shane. He and his staff do an incredible job with our nursery, with our tree farm, and really helping to support what makes our community better in all the ways mentioned and probably more. What's the best time to plant a tree? Does anyone know? It's a trick question.
It's 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or yesterday or today, whatever. But Greg, you nailed it. So we're glad to have people that planted trees whose shade we can benefit from.
I thought you were going to say before it leaves.
Yep, that too. Thank you. And Adam, will you take us through the agenda? We've got the consent calendar, kind of a long one today.
Yeah, we've got 10 items on the consent calendar this week. These items are ready to go. I will point out that for item, let me make sure I get the right one. Item G, which is our agreement with the Huntsman World Senior Games. The agreement that I believe was included in the packet was not the most or the latest version of that document. So we have corrected that. I would just point out that we'll want that one subject to legal review. We just want to make sure we get the language right. Otherwise, these are ready to go, including the minutes.
I have questions on 2.
Yeah.
I have questions on 1A and 1B. You want me to direct those to you right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. Well, okay, so on 1A, I just want to praise our staff, especially for this one. This is one we've been working on, getting the connectivity for Bloomington Hills and for these school kids, the safe route to school. It's a big deal. And my only question would be, I think to Jay Sandberg to ask, once this is done, are we going to restripe so that the shoulders are kind of even? So we have even shoulders all the way down that road, because the shoulders are a little weird, kind of imbalanced on that road. Are we going to restripe it so that we can actually use both the pedestrian, this new pedestrian space, and then also that it's a better cycling space?
Cameron?
Is he?
Cameron's here and
Yep.
he'll be able to answer that for us.
I'm here. I don't know if Jay is on. I don't think the restriping is in the project. We can look at that because I don't think we were resurfacing the road. This was basically widening just a little bit on the one side, adding curb and gutter, and then adding that path. But I'll look into it, Danielle.
Thanks, Cameron. And I guess if it's not now, I'm assume like that will happen eventually, that we can kind of widen or basically balance those shoulders out. Is that going to happen eventually?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
If you can just check into that, Cameron, and maybe let us know, and it might be, if it's too far down the road, pardon the pun, we might want to look at if we need to do something sooner, but we'll have Cameron look into it.
Yep.
Okay.
I can do that.
Also,
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
before you leave that one, Danielle, Cameron was going to reach out to, I think it was Julie Mizukawa from the neighborhood group, and just kind of let them know this was happening. Were you able to send anything to her today, Cameron?
Yes, I sent one to actually her husband, who then forwarded it to her, and then I got a response back saying thank you. And then also I reached out to Michelle North, the principal there at Bloomington Hills Elementary, and she replied back too, thank you.
Okay, very good. We just wanted them to know it was coming. Anyway, Danielle, go on to your question on 1B.
Thank you for this, Cameron. I know they're all going to be so excited about it. So my question on 1B is, we have the same, okay, first my question is there going to be a ped crossing on 1B from the south side of the street? So like when we install that light, will you be able to push a button and actually be a pedestrian and cross that street? Because one issue that we have right now over by Dinosaur Crossing, I can't think of what the street is. It's Mall Drive, but it's like the street where you would turn to get on the trail and to go, down to the apartments.
I think it's called Dino Crossing or something like that.
Okay, so it's Mall Drive and Dino Crossing. We have a problem there because you can push the pedestrian button if you are on the east side of the street, but if you're on the west side, which a lot of people come up right there, and also, we have a sidewalk feeding into there, you get there, and then it's like there's no safe way for you to get to this destination that you need to, very short distance away. So I'm just curious, I think we would have the same problem at Two Weep if we don't have a pedestrian crossing button on the south side.
Yes, there will be. It has sidewalk all along on each corner of that Two-Weep Drive at Sunset. The issue with the Dinosaur Crossings is that there's no pedestrian facilities on the one side of the road until we get that development done. And so the wiring, everything's there to be able to do pedestrian crossing, but because we don't have any sidewalk, we don't have any pedestrian facilities, it's not in. That's
We have sidewalk, we have the sidewalk on the south side, we just don't have it on the north side, right?
at Dinosaur Crossing.
Yeah.
So on let's see, that has a different angle to it because it's, I'm just pulling into a map right here and looking at it.
I don't know what direction's what there.
Yeah, on the opposite side.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of Smith's, they don't have any sidewalk right there yet.
But if you come across the bridge, I guess is what I'm referring to. If you come across the bridge on the sidewalk, you can come all the way on the sidewalk to the light, basically, and then you're just kind of stranded.
Well, and also if you're coming from, say, is it Greyhawk, the apartments there, Adam?
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a bike, because I did this Saturday, on the street, you've just got to go into the left-hand turn lane. You can't cross Mall Drive and go over to the other side. And it's because there's not a sidewalk there. You're right, Cameron, but it's a little bit tricky because like me, I just got in a left turn lane and everyone wondered what I was doing. in their lane. I just kind of went to the right in the middle, and I went with the light and crossed, and I stayed on the bridge instead of going into the pedestrian side. But it is a little tricky, and I wonder if there might be something temporarily we could do there. As you said, Cameron, it'll be all handled when it's developed. But if it's going to be a while until that's developed, I think we might need an interim solution, to Danielle's point.
Yep, I'll look into it, because when we obtained the right of way for the bridge and the roadway, we only got the 30 or 32 feet of pavement width right of way. And so where that's not developed on the opposite side of Smith's, we don't even have the right of way right there. We had to get an easement for the signal poles, but I'll look into it and see what we can do.
Thanks.
Thank
Karen. Even if we could do it on the south side, even if it's not available on the northwest side, if we could do it on the southwest side, it's just such a highly used area. And I see kids down there all the time. There's tons of kids that come from that neighborhood, Pineview Estates. And it's just like, they're darting across the street over there by the bridge because they're not sure where to cross. So it's something to look at.
As an interim solution, one of these bids, they're the 2780 east signal, and we have that pathway that we put in. We'll have the signal right there that will have the crossing, and that has all pedestrian facilities right there. And so they may be able to bypass the bridge section on the south side of the bridge and just all go to the north. So they actually will have a crossing once we get this other signal in. That's a good interim solution, but I'll look into that other one.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's the one that's just up by Lynn's, right? The
Yeah.
new, it's actually Revere on the one side that's being built, and then the Tim Stewart project on the other side of the street.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And actually, I think that will work really well. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions, council, on the consent calendar?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could look at item I. Just have a couple questions on I, what's going on there.
So Mark, are you on?
Mark?
I hear him being
Yes.
called. There he is.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Go
Mark,
ahead,
you want
Mark.
to address item I, the agreement with Zagster?
Yes, that is, as you recall, or many of you may or may not know, that Spin has left our community. They vacated the end of March, and so we no longer have a scooter company in St. George that's servicing our area. Zagster is working with a couple of partners right now to bring another product into the market. It would operate very, very similar to Spin, and probably about the same number of vehicles. It may be a scooter just like Spin Scooter, or it might be a device that actually, it's kind of a cross between an e-bike and a scooter. But nonetheless, probably 200 to 400 vehicles would be coming in. We anticipate a launch date somewhere, pending your approval, somewhere in May or early June. And we did have a really good deal with the Spin scooters, where we were getting $1 per deployed scooter per day. That is just not the reality now in the market nationwide. And the most they're willing to go is 10 cents per vehicle per day. And we figured that was probably better than nothing. Most cities are not getting any payment at all. So, that still generates a fair amount, probably about $1,000 a month is what that could potentially generate. Anyway, that's kind of the skinny on that. Is there any questions that any of you have on that agreement?
I have two questions. I was wondering, is there a reason Spin pulled out? Was it not profitable for them in our market? So that's one. And then my other question would be, as we look at other vendors, was there any issues that we had on our end, or were we happy? I mean, as a consumer, I was happy. I used them. Just wondering, just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, both very good questions. Spin pulled out of a number of markets, a number of small markets, I should say, across the United States. We were one of probably dozens, so we weren't alone. in that. That was a choice they made because they were really just trying to focus. Their model wasn't sustainable long-term. They're really trying to focus on larger markets. So they made that conscious decision. They fulfilled their agreement with us, which was 1 year, and we appreciate that. But that was really the reason behind. And the second question, we were very happy with the performance. If you recall, it's actually Zagster who operates the system. It was Spin that owned the scooters, but Zagster did all the on-ground logistics and coordination, rebalancing of the scooters, and they did an excellent job. And our relationship with them remains very good, and so we have no problem with them. That's they're working on an exclusive with another company right now. It may be one of two that they're looking at, and we'll let you know as soon as we know who they're talking with right now.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented. And with the one modification, it was with legal, subject to a couple of changes on legal on that. What was that? That was the Huntsman World Senior Games. I think it's right. It just wasn't right in the board packet, the council packet. So
I'll make a motion. We
Oh yeah,
approve.
go ahead, Greg.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent calendar with the one change with legal.
I'll second.
okay, we had a motion by Greg and a second by, was that you, Danielle?
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, starting with.
I lost you, Mayor.
I'll say it again. My audio is weird. All in favor, starting with Danielle. Aye.
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Brian. Jimmy. Okay, motion carries. I don't know what, my audio is really weird right now.
I've experienced with this with Zoom quite a bit lately. I think what it is the feedback coming through Brian's speakers. It slows it down because it hears you and then it feeds back through him. He might be on a little bit slower internet there that makes it do that.
Okay. All right. So hopefully it's not like that all night. Let's go to item 2.
Okay, item 2, we have a public hearing on an ordinance approving a boundary line adjustment with the city of Santa Clara. And let's see, Wes, looks like Wes is bringing up his screen. Go ahead, Wes.
Okay, this is a request to consider adjusting the municipal boundary line between the city of St. George and Santa Clara City. The adjustment will follow the alignment of the recently constructed ditch along Dean Terry's property. So here's Sunset right here. Here's Dean Terry's property. So basically the boundary line adjustment is to move the city boundary to that point right there, which will encompass a little more of Dean Terry's property here, and then the ditch. And so the city boundary line will be on the westerly side of the ditch right here. They are requesting zoning with this that kind of relates to what's around there. So they're requesting that additional area that comes in be C2 zoning, and then the ditch area be open space.
So the adjacent zoning there is C2.
Yeah, right here on
Where
Dean
Dean's
Terry's
house is?
Not so much where his house is, but the property to the west of it.
All right. Any questions, council? Okay, then what I'm going to do is open the public hearing, unless you have anything else, Wes.
Nope, I'm good.
I'll open the public hearing for anyone who has come to make comments on this. And now what I would ask is anyone who has comments, if you would please make yourself known, state your name in the chat down in the middle bottom of your screen. There's the chat box. And if you just type a message, saying that you would like to speak to this item, which is item number 2 on our agenda today. This public hearing for the boundary line adjustment with Santa Clara. I'll just give it a minute, council. Seeing none, I'm just looking to make sure no one's like physically raising their hand or anything in the gallery.
I didn't see anything, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Then I'm going to close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action or any discussion. I don't see any discussion, so I'd entertain a motion to approve or deny either way.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 2 as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a second by Greg. Any comments? Jimmy, did you have a comment?
No, I was gonna second, but
Okay. All right, then I'll start with Brian so he can turn off his mute and then turn it back on. So Brian, all in favor, starting with Brian? Did anyone hear anything? So I think you're kind of locked up a bit, Brian. Why don't you, Brian, if you would vote in the chat. Brian, if you'll vote in the chat, I think I'll wait for you for a minute. He's locked up at the moment.
Brian, you want to come up to my house and sit 6 feet away from me?
Okay, he just typed the letter I. All right, so we'll go next to Jimmy. Jimmy, are you in favor?
aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Danielle.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries unanimously. All right, item
Okay.
number 3.
This is an ordinance to change the name of a public street.
Yeah, so this request is to change the name of a public street located down in the Desert Canyons development from Cottonwood Crossing Drive to Desert Resort Court. So here's the Desert Canyons, here's the Southern Parkway, here's Desert Canyons Parkway. So it's on the north side of the Southern Parkway, and it's just this little stub road right here that they now want to change to Desert Resort Court.
Council, any questions on this? If there are none, I don't see any. I will open the public hearing on this item for anyone that has come to offer input or ask questions on this item number 3. Again, if you would make yourself known in the chat and type a message in saying that you would like to make a comment. Nobody's in the lobby to make a comment. And I'm not seeing anything in the chat room. So I will close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any discussion or your action.
I would make a motion that we can change the name of the public street from Cottonwood Crossing Drive to Desert Resorts Court.
Second,
Second.
Okay, that was good. We have a motion by Greg, a second by Jimmy, and a close third by Brian. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, those in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye. Greg,
Aye.
Jimmy,
aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Hey, we hear you now. I think that was probably magic to shut off your video like Greg suggested. All right, the motion carries unanimously. Adam?
Item 4, Wes, is that you?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, item 4 is a request to vacate a public utility and drainage easement located between lot 144 of Meadow Valley Farms Phase 11 and lot 4 of Meadows Edge Phase 2, which is located approximately 3860 South Quarry Ridge Drive. So this was the original property line right here between the two lots. You can kind of see a little hatched area faded back. That was where the utility easement was. They're requesting to change the property line to here, right here where the dark line, and establish a new municipal utility easement there, vacating this one right there. So they'll have to deal with, I think, as I recall, the lot fronts this way, and so they'll have to deal with the service laterals that were originally installed for this lot. They'll have to deal with those as part of this adjustment of the easement and lot and the lot line adjustment.
Questions, council? No? All right, then I will open the public hearing on this item, number 4, for any that may have come virtually to offer opinion or ask questions on this item, number 4. And again, I would ask you to make yourself known in the chat box down in the middle lower end of your screen. And I'll watch if you would just make yourself known and say you have a comment and state your name. Not seeing any, but I'll wait another minute. I'm not seeing anybody wave their hand wildly in the gallery, the Zoom gallery. I'll close the public hearing at this time and come back to you, council, for your discussion or action.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the ordinance vacating the public utility easement located between lot 144. I can't see my screen, but as outlined in item 4.
Okay, there was a motion by Jimmy, and I think the second was made by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Jimmy this time, say aye.
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll go on to number 5.
Hey, does anybody want to take the opportunity to read or present this one? I mean, this is kind of a big deal, and if Ed were here, I might let him do it. But
Jimmy?
we're finally getting this done. Item number 5, a proposal from Staker Parson to construct Commerce Drive.
Jimmy or Danielle, are you happy about this?
3 cheers. Woo!
Yeah, this is awesome.
Cameron, do you have any other information that you want to share with us, Cameron or Wes?
It'll be nice just to get it done.
Yeah.
Poor
Any
Cameron.
questions, council?
Cameron's been working on this for a long time with property owners and so forth. So this will be fantastic. If there's nothing else or no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve this. I guess this would be, is it an agreement or just a proposal? Approve the proposal.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Staker and Parson Company to construct Commerce Drive.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Jimmy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Brian, say aye.
Aye.
Jimmy,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Danielle.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, item number 6. Scott, are you there?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm here then. So the Municipal Wastewater Planning Program, this is a program that is administered by the state of Utah, the Division of Water Quality. It's a self-assessment that we conduct annually. And basically what this program does is it forces, it compels wastewater utilities to take a close look at our operations, our compliance, and our planning for our wastewater utility. We do that anyway, really on a daily basis. We're always looking at our operations, making sure we're in compliance. We are very involved in planning for new growth. So, but this is a program that kind of compels us to look at it annually and report back to the state what our findings are. The MWPP, the self-assessment, we look at the financial aspect of our utility, our operations, our performance, and our compliance. And then we're required to present that to the city council in a form of a resolution, and then ultimately submit it to the Division of Water Quality. We look at our operating revenues, our user charges, our operation and maintenance expenses, and then we look closely at our capital projects for the next 5, 10, and 20 years. You know, this year we've just completed our update to our capital facilities plan. So we have a really good idea of what capital projects are going to be required in the next 5, 10 to 20 years. So that was a huge help for us this year. And then we also look at the impact fees that will be required to sustain that growth. We had no major issues this year with the assessment. We had no sanitary sewer overflows. We had no bypass in treatment. We had no disruption in our treatment process. So everything looked really good this year. Our new development, we're able to keep up with growth. We're planning for new growth, and we're building infrastructure to accommodate that new growth. We look at our operator certifications, and we have all the certifications that we need. We're doing a very good job on our facility maintenance and our collection system maintenance and operation. And really, you know, our most valuable asset are our employees. We have some really outstanding employees in both the collection system and the wastewater treatment facility. You know, these guys, they're probably underappreciated. They do the job that nobody else wants to do, and they do a great job at it. And they're very dedicated to what they do. So, you know, we have no issues with the self-assessment this year. Everything seems to be running smooth. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
You know, Scott, we take you and your people for granted too much, I'm afraid. We just want to thank you and the whole team for everything you do. It's fantastic. It's just good to know that we are in good hands, and water and wastewater treatment. We can be in a lot of trouble in a lot of ways real quick if we're not paying attention to that. Council, any comments before we ask for a motion on this resolution?
I just have a comment, Mayor. I just want to praise Scott for all that he does. I mean, he runs an impressive operation. I bug him with questions all the time, and he always has the answers. And he's actually been my neighbor for a really long time. So I knew him as a neighbor, and we both come from parents who were raised in Parowan, Utah. So we have the mother town connection. So we were all connected up already, but now that I have seen what he does with our water, I'm even just way more impressed with Scott Taylor. And I appreciate him so much. It's just really amazing. So thank you, Scott.
Well, really anyone could do my job, but I rely on a lot of employees that they're really the ones that deserve the credit.
Well, I know they're awesome too, but you're also really humble.
Yeah, he is. Please pass our gratitude on to them, Scott, and we're grateful. And I know that if the citizens knew everything, that goes on behind the scenes, they would be incredibly grateful too. So,
Well,
anyway.
we like to be out of sight, out of mind. When we're noticed, oftentimes it's not for, it's when sewer's overflowing that we're noticed, and we don't like to be noticed for that.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you again, Scott. Council, I'd entertain a motion to approve this resolution accepting the 2019 Municipal Wastewater Planning Program as Scott has described.
So
So moved.
Okay, was that Jimmy?
Greg
Who-
and
Brian.
Brian.
Okay, so Greg, you get the motion, and Brian. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, starting with Brian, say aye.
Aye.
Jimmy,
Aye.
Greg,
aye.
Danielle,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously. Thanks again, Scott.
Okay, next for item number 7, I just want to again refer you to the addendum or corrected agenda that was sent out for the background on that. And I believe Lori is with us tonight. Lori, can you hear us? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, number 7, it's a resolution to adopt and approve through the city for UAMPS to turn over a piece of wire, actually a 69 kV wire between 2 substations in Hurricane. As a group, with the other participating cities in the area, we own some transmission. St. George has about 76% of that transmission ownership. This piece of line is an old piece of line, and it's just the wire that the group owns. Hurricane owns all the right-of-ways and the poles, and it needs to be updated. And the group decided rather than us pay to have it updated, we were going to give it to Hurricane, and they're the only ones that use that that portion of the line, and we have no future use for it.
Sounds good. So you recommend this?
I do. We tried to get a little bit of money out of Hurricane, but they didn't really want to do that. So we decided it was worth it for us to give it to them.
Sounds good. Any questions, council? Otherwise, I'm ready for a motion to approve this resolution.
Do we save this on a little list, Mayor, of things that Hurricane owes us a little something for?
I think the list is pretty long, but that's all right. We're okay being the, once in a while, the benevolent, whatever you want to call us.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of this resolution to gift the Central St. George KV transmission project line to Hurricane. I probably said that wrong. Does that work?
Sounded pretty good to me.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Brian's not moving at all. He just kind of sits there. Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Brian, say aye.
Aye.
Jimmy,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Danielle.
Aye.
Okay, that's passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lori. Oh, Brian's for real now.
Okay, item number 8 is an ordinance to modify Title 4 of City Code. This is solid waste recyclables. So back in 2015, we began our recycling program. We've had a system in place to allow for homeowners to come to a committee, basically go through an opt-out process. At this time, we feel like enough time has elapsed under the program that there's no longer a need for that option. We believe that probably by the end of the year, there's a possibility that there may be additional changes to recycling. I couldn't say what those are. That's just a hunch maybe, but we'll continue to monitor any changes that we see in that industry. But for now, staff will amend the or would recommend the approval of this change to city code.
Sean, any comments from the legal department on this?
No, Mayor, Adam summed it up, and we would recommend approval of this change.
As you can see, council, this is really, Greg and I talked about this earlier today. This is really, it gives people the option to opt out if there's really only one condition, if there's an extreme financial hardship. Is that correct, Sean?
Yes, Mayor.
So we really haven't seen very many coming through, and most of them, if they do come through, it ends up being determined that they don't have extreme financial hardship. Otherwise, council, you may remember, Jimmy does, I'm sure, we gave people an initial opportunity to opt out. And once that time period was passed, everyone knew that moves in or establishes a new service, they're in. There's no opportunity to opt out. The only opportunity is to appeal through this process if there's a hardship. So there haven't been very many recently that have appealed. And when they do, to my recollection, there have been very few that have been granted. Is that also correct, Sean?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor.
So hence this. Now, if you don't want to do this, council, I would understand that. It's just staff recommending, frankly, that it's sort of almost giving people false hope because we aren't allowing them to just opt out if they want to. So what Adam said is also accurate, and you all know this because you're board members of the Solid Waste Board. We're currently, the executive committee is currently trying to renegotiate three contracts with Republic. And I'm not sure yet whether we'll be doing recycling. I think we'll offer it up again, but the cost will go up. As you all know, we've essentially been subsidizing it as a district for the last couple of years, maybe 3 years. And that contract expires the end of January 2021. My guess is we'll offer it again. We'll have another opt-out. That'll be up to the board to determine, including the 6 of us, to determine how we do that. But I'm sure that we will at least give them a significant opt-out period, and would want to make sure, especially since that will increase probably a couple bucks per household per month. So it's about $3 a month now. It'll go up to $5. If too many people opt out, it might be $5.50. It might be $6. It's going to depend on, that process. That'll be before us as a solid waste board later. But I think in the meantime, we're not going to let a bunch of people opt out and through this process, because there just aren't that many that apply for it and that meet this criteria. So what are your thoughts? Any suggestions, or if you're ready, we can do a motion if you're so inclined one way or the other on this proposal.
Mayor, I just have one thought. I know that the whole recycling issue, just overall, it's challenging, right? Because we want to recycle, and yet at the same time, companies have to be able to make money to have it be something that we can do as a society. So, I know that we'll go through the negotiations and we'll figure this out, but I would really love to see us talk more about, we have that reduce, reuse, recycle, and we really hit recycle hard. But the truth is, the more effective things are way more effective are reducing and reusing. And we really don't talk about those two things. And we could make a huge difference in the amount of garbage and recyclables that we're trying to process if we started kind of campaigning for reducing and reusing. So that's just something I just wanted to throw out there, and we can talk about that later, but think about it.
Thank you. I would also just mention this. We had a meeting yesterday with Republic, and they indicated that we're currently, the market has gotten a little better the recycling market. They're currently able to sell all of the recyclables that they take from here. And they're estimating that, similar to Clark County, they're probably what do they call it? The contamination. In other words, trash that's mixed in with truly recyclable materials is about 15%. So about 85% is being recycled. That's better than what it has been. And like I say, they're actually recycling it. So that's good news. But like you say, Danielle, there are other things to talk about, and we'll have to talk about the whole program. We visited with the mayors about it this morning. We'll bring it back to the board soon, probably the next meeting, and discuss it more. But in terms of this, I realize it's related. Probably, Christina tells me, about 25% over the last 4 years of the people that have applied have been granted their ability to opt out. Most of them have been due to medical hardships, very few financial hardships.
And Mayor, I'd add to that number was larger at the beginning, of course, when we started the program, but
Right.
has tapered off significantly. And now it's really a burden for Christina to organize the committee to get together when most of the applications are going to be denied anyway. And so that's where we are. But at the beginning, there were quite a few that missed that opt-out period and then realized it and wanted to come forward. So
That's fair. Thank you. And I really think that if we go through it again with a significant, increase, we're going to give everyone every opportunity to opt out.
I just had one thought on this, and that is, so again, this is just for discussion, but we're putting this in place now when there might be a chance where people have financial hardships. And so this is something that we're going to address at the end of the year, or I don't know exactly when, but coming up shortly. Maybe it's something we leave in for now. I know it's a small amount, but maybe it's something we leave in and don't address, we table, and then we address at the end of the year when we do the more substantial opt-out and change.
And Mayor, we still can address those hardships. We'll just address them internally if someone comes forward and says that there's a financial hardship on just the recycling. Obviously, they're going to have garbage service, but
That's good. That's a good point, Sean. We can do it without a committee.
Yeah, and I hope we could, and I'm okay with this, but I think Greg's got a valid point, because I hate to say it, the optics, but the timing is everything, and it don't, the bill's the bill, the recycling contract's in place, we got to do it, but Greg's kind of right. We're in one of those spots right now with everything helter skelter. Is it something that we just, because we are addressing it in the near future, do we leave it in place? Or I guess if the Sean's saying we still have a way that we can do that without having to have the committee, I'm all for that.
And yes, we can do that for the financial hardships.
And so, Sean, I don't know if Trevor's on.
Trevor's
but
on.
As far as the just overall timing, is there a compelling reason to need to amend the ordinance right now?
We have some pending applications on these, and it's with the Zoom meeting requirements because of the pandemic. We've had a hard time trying to organize the committee, but we've had continual problems organizing the committee. And so it seems that we would be more efficient if we just adopted it by policy, and then they could look at that internally, Trevor and his staff, and they can make a recommendation if you want them to come to you, or do you want Trevor to sign off? But that
as
would
opposed to trying to convene a committee and do it electronically and meet with the resident.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Council, if we had that kind of a process in place, would that help you feel better about it and the public feel better about it? I think if we explain that, it's on the record that we still would expect to do that, and we could just do it more simply. As Adam and Sean just described.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. That
Motion.
would take care of my concerns on it.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion one way or the other, council.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 8 as presented.
With those clarifications, right, Danielle, that we would still have a process just simplified between staff.
Yes, we definitely want that noted.
Okay.
Second
There's
with
a
those
motion.
clarifications.
Motion by Danielle. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jimmy. Discussion? Thanks for the previous discussion. That makes it better, council. All in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
And Danielle.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, with item number 9, we are back to land use. John, Wes, Ray?
Oh, I got it. Hold on just a second. How come it didn't pick it up? Oh, there it is. Okay, item 9 is a request to consider approval of a hillside permit to allow development of a single-family subdivision called Desert Cliffs Phases 1 through 3. The proposed development is to be accessed from Desert Canyons Parkway. So this area, it's right here. Here's Desert Canyons Parkways that come off of the Southern Parkway. It's kind of on the east. It is the eastern edge of their development now. It does lie within the Hillside overlay zone, and that's what triggered it to come to Hillside. So here's their slope analysis map right here. You can see the yellow represents slopes that are 20% or less. The majority of the project is 20% or less. You can see a little smattering of some little higher slope, like 20 to 30 and 30 to 40, but it all met ordinance. The other thing as part of this hillside permit is they did a rockfall hazard study, and you can see faintly, it'll show it better in the plat when I show it to you later on in the agenda, but that's roughly the rockfall hazard line right there. And so that was really the big concern on this one, was not so much the slope, because most of the slope is less than 20%. It was the analysis of the rockfall hazard line. And the one condition on this that Hillside had was they are doing some grading within this area right here that won't be in any of the lots. It does lie within the hillside or in the rockfall overlay zone, but it ties the lots, the grading for the lots back into the existing contours. And the one request from Hillside was to verify that the geotechnical engineer who did the rockfall study, that they did the study based on finished grade contours and not on the existing contour. I did talk to the geotechnical engineer. The person that did it in his company was actually located up north. He was going to verify that for me. So it'll be conditioned on that, getting that from them, verification from them that it was done with finished grade contours and not the existing contours. And if it wasn't, they'll have to just update their study. And if there's any changes that are significant, then we'd have to bring it back to you.
Anything else, Wes?
Nope, that's it.
Council, any questions? Ready for a motion then?
I'll make a comment on it.
Okay, only if you have a motion after.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
these things, it's tough here tonight. It's tough. So I went out there to look at it just because I wanted to see what we were looking at on the hillside and stuff. It's a really pretty valley there. I can see why they have the rock slide issues there, because there's huge boulders sitting in that valley that come off. So they'll have to move those. My main thing is just as long as we are not cutting into that hillside, because it's a really pretty hillside. So if the homes stay down in the valley, that's great. If we're getting higher up into cutting into the side of that hill, then it's, I don't know. I don't know if I'd like that. I just think it's something we got to look out for. It's a really beautiful area.
Yeah, and you can see right here on the slope map, see that area is still within yellow for the most part. There is a little right through here where they'll get into the steeper slope, but it didn't get into the 40% and it stayed within the constraints in the Hillside Ordinance. So for the most part, they'll be cutting into the toe where it's still a 20% or less slope. And then just right in this area, they'll get into a little steeper slope right through here. But their percentages of what they're allowed to disturb in those slopes met the city ordinance.
And I think that's the key, Wes, is, you know, if they're meeting the city ordinance, I'm not sure we can really ask anymore unless we change the ordinance.
Right. And to be honest with you, it's fairly restrictive as far as the percent of the slope that they can disturb. So within the 20 to 30% slope range, they can only disturb 30% of the area. And within the slope category of 30 to 40, they can only disturb 5% of the slope area. So, you know, it does restrict them somewhat as how much they can get into those areas and disturb.
Jimmy, when you were a young kid, did you ever go out to this area?
Yes. Beautiful area.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it? But did you ever think they'd be building houses out there?
Every time I go out there, I go, what in the world is going on?
Pretty amazing.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably you too. You probably, if you're like Jimmy, you went pheasant hunting and, you know, motorcycle riding and hiking and whatever in all these areas that are now, you know, part of our city in terms of residents and stuff. Okay, if there are any other questions, please ask them now, or we can entertain a motion. Greg, if that answered your question.
Yeah, that answers it. I mean, if they're complying, then it's good.
Ready for a motion then, if there are no other questions on this Hillside permit.
I'll go ahead and make a motion, Mayor, that we approve the request for a hillside development permit for the masquerading of the Broken Rock Mesa area.
Okay, we have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Danielle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
Oh, hey, sorry, Mayor. I just realized, did we need to put in the motion that it's conditioned on that rockfall, or is that already stated on that rockfall study?
I think it doesn't hurt to include that in the motion if you're so inclined, Jimmy and Danielle.
So amended.
Second.
And, yeah, it doesn't hurt to have that clarification. Thank you. So again, all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And Danielle?
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, so item 10 is a request to consider approval of a hillside development permit to allow mass grading of the Broken Rock Mesa area located east of the proposed Desert Cliff residential project that I just showed you. So here's the one we just looked at. And now this is their request here to mass grade this area. Now, normally we don't take these hillside projects forward unless there's an actual project that's associated with it, not just to go out and mass grade some property. However, they've had what's called a conditional letter of map revision. So the Fort Pierce wash is about right there. And they've had a conditional letter of map revision for the 100-year floodplain from about that point right there all the way up to somewhere in here somewhere. And it's been out there probably, I want to say 10, 11 years, longer than I've been down here in development. Anyway, Public Works is kind of taking the stand, hey, you got to finish this up. A conditional letter of map revision is just based on a design. And so at some point you have to build what you're going to do and then submit a letter of map revision that then solidifies where the new floodplain line is. Public Works has decided that it's been there long enough. They need to go forward and get that letter of map revision done. And so to do that, They now need to grade the rest of this property to bring it up to the elevations that were designed on their original conditional letter of map revision. And so that's why we thought that would be okay to let them go forward and mass grade this now so they can get that LOMAR finally done and submitted to FEMA. They do have some projects coming in soon for right here and possibly here, but nothing down here yet. You can see they are getting a little into but they're staying out of the hillside areas for right now. And it's just really mass grading this area here. Each of these subdivisions will then come back to you. Both they'll go back through the hillside review process as the subdivision is presented or the preliminary plat is submitted, and you'll see that again, both hillside and preliminary plat.
Wes?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the section, these orange sections that we're seeing, we see the dotted line and then the orange sections that are within it. Does that mean they're taking those hillsides down?
The only, yeah, so they are doing, so you'll see right here, I forgot to tell you, there is a little bit of 40% right through here slope. And that's because there's a drainage that comes down through here, and the contours picked up that drainage and showed it as a 40% slope. So the hillside said that was not contiguous to hillside, it was just a small wash. They were okay with them disturbing that. They're trying to stay out of that area right now as far as getting into the 30 and 40 and so forth. They just really want to get in here and mass grade this area right here.
Could you hit on that again with the, so they need to mass grade this to get approval to move forward with, could you hit that one more time? I know you just said it. This is just, it's a big deal. That's a huge mass graded area.
Yeah, it is a big deal. So what they did about, I'm going to say 12 years ago or so, they did what's called a conditional letter of map revision. And what that does is they went out and designed this development out here based on, they graded it basically and said, this is what we want to do. Here's where we want to fill it and so forth. Then they submitted that to FEMA. And so then FEMA approved that design, which then moved the floodplain closer into the Fort Pierce wash based on those elevations. Then once the development is built or once it's graded to that elevation, then they go out and do a survey of it and then submit as-built drawings showing, hey, we built it and now we want to apply for what's considered a letter of map revision, which then gets solidified in FEMA. So Public Works felt like, it's been out there long enough. We should have had this done a long time ago. And so they kind of pushed them to come out here and finish this up. And that's why you see the mass grading to here, because their conditional of letter of map revision went from about that point right there all the way up through here. So it is a little unique. We don't really have any projects for this area right here. Like I said, they are submitting some preliminary plats here that you'll see soon, but this area is still left. But Public Works has kind of pushed them and said, let's get this thing done and get that letter of map revision, because it does affect some of the units up in this area here, because they were part of that conditional letter of map revision and they have now been developed.
So they can't, so they have to get that approval from FEMA before they can, that approval before they can do anything else, basically, and they have to grade it to get that approval.
Well, the problem is if you're still considered within the floodplain. If you build lots, you still have some if you build lots within that conditional letter map revision area and it was in the floodplain, then you're still within the floodplain. Letter of map revision then just pulls everything out to where it should be based on their design and what was approved through FEMA. Hopefully that makes sense.
So to clarify, Wes, they could go forward, they would just be at risk of being in the flood zone, which they don't want to be.
Yeah. So if you look at the Fort Pierce wash, where just north of Commerce Drive, so some of that development we've actually held out, but we've approved it, but it's under a conditional letter of map revision. Some of those lots we haven't let them develop yet, but we've approved them, but we're waiting for that Lomar to be finalized north of Commerce Drive, and then they can develop those lots. So we really tried to hold most of the lots out, even though some were approved, because we want to make sure that we really don't build in there until such time as the Lomar is actually approved. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
Took me about 3 years to understand this.
Has all this, so I was just out there. This is why I'm concerned about it, because I wanted to look at all this. I mean, it's a pretty hilly area. It's, once you get past that, that cliffs, what is that? That desert cliffs. And so when you start moving to the east there into this graded area, I mean, there's that hill's big that they're pulling out what the drain is. And
so they're leaving, you can see that most of the area lies within the 20%. Like I said, they have that wash and this little area right in here that the Hillside committee felt like wasn't a contiguous hillside, was just more of kind of a standing alone by itself, and felt like that could be removed. And then you'd see then the rest of this is all within the 20% or less. So that was kind of the recommendation Planning Commission made. The rest, or Hillside made, the rest of this area here would remain undisturbed. And then, like I said, they'll go back to Hillside for other preliminary plats as they go forward to verify that, you know, they're not disturbing outside of the percentages that are allowed by the Hillside ordinance, or if a rockfall study needs to be done through there and how that would impact any of that development.
I got one more question on this, and that is, so this is a large area. Do we have concerns with air quality with just having a big mass leveled area out there?
That was my question.
What they'll have to do is they'll have to go out and they'll have to wet it as they masquerade it. Positive, you know, I mean, I guess the one positive is it's kind of far away from the city, but as the wind blows, it does carry it. So they'll have to keep it wetted down. If when this is done and they're done masquerading, we'll require them to at least go in and what we call crust it, where they have to go in and really wet it down and compact it really hard so that you get a really hard surface, so you don't get any, or you try to reduce the amount of dust that can come off of it. But yeah, there's some concern for that, but that's what we'll do when they're done grading, is we'll require them to go in there and crust it really hard to help prevent any further help prevent dust coming off during a wind event.
Wes, I had the same question as Greg. So say, you know, they go forward with this and then, you know, residential building isn't happening the way that it is now, and you know, this sits for a long period of time. I mean, how long does that crust last? Does this become a problematic area? You know, that's a big, huge space to just go in and turn into dirt and then just let it sit there. Do you guys have any concerns about that?
Well, that's a good question. And that's always, you know, that's kind of the risk you take in something like this is, yeah, if the whole, you know, if the economy goes south, how long does that sit there like that? I think you could make a recommendation that, if it, you know, we'll obviously require them to go out and wet it down every once in a while if we start seeing a lot of dust off of it. But that could be some kind of recommendation from council as far as, you know, how to deal with that in the future.
Is there any other way to move forward on this? I'm not comfortable with that large of area being mass graded out there, especially with our economy. I mean, I think we're growing, but it's just, we're in a tumultuous time, unprecedented time. Is there any way for them to move forward without going to this mass grade of the whole area?
Well, we could let them go. You know, I know, like I said, they have a layout designed here for a preliminary plat, and I believe they have one right here for this area, because you can kind of see their contours there, where this shows more of just flattening out the land or filling in the land. We could go to a point right there for now and see how the economy goes forward, if that's what you're more comfortable with, and allow them to do that with the idea that they'll be bringing in some preliminary plats soon in that area right there.
Let me ask the applicant, I believe Kurt Gordon is on.
He is on the line.
Perfect.
He says, Yeah, Kurt, why don't you, let's have James unmute you, Kurt, and if any comments you'd like to make right now.
Sure. So Mayor, I guess that we would like to ask that the item be continued so we can meet with council members that have the concerns and address those, and make sure that we cover everybody's concerns.
Well, I would say let's address them now.
Okay. Well, I think that for the most part, the area is completely flat, except for what Wes just described as that wash. We're not getting up into Hillside. It is covered with some vegetation as it is now, but there's also pretty big areas that are just below sand, honestly. And we will do our best to mitigate any dust problems. Like Wes said, if the crust starts to break up, we'll go back and recrust it and make sure that we don't have a dust problem. We could even go so far as to maybe even reseed some areas that may be a problem.
And if there are if there are concerns, I mean, it's fine if the applicant is still willing and would like us to table this for until our next regular meeting, which would probably be May 7th. We will have a meeting on the 30th, but that's more of a work meeting format. That's up to you, Kurt. If you are requesting a table for us to table this for an opportunity to clarify with staff and or council members some options that we might both be comfortable with, we can do that if you'd like.
Well, I think that it depends on the council members. If they're satisfied with what I've said, that would be, it's fine to continue on. But if they still have concerns, we'd like to take a pause and address the concerns.
The Greg and Danielle in particular, any thoughts? And Kurt, I would ask you, one of the comments made was if only part of this were done, as Wes mentioned, is that something you're comfortable with, or would you rather not have to be limited that way?
It's kind of a catch-22 for us, Mayor, because of the Lomar issue. It's really, we really have to do the whole thing because of the Lomar. We might be able to just grade a little more toward the wash instead of cutting it in an east-west fashion. We might be able to just stick closer to the wash and grade a smaller area that way. But we could have our engineers look at minimizing the disturbance area.
If that's at all a possibility, Mayor, then I think we should table this or wait, because it would be so much better to just do it in a little bit smaller portions so that we don't have a mass graded area sitting out there for years as a possibility.
So Kurt, would you be comfortable going back to your engineers, your consultants, and maybe coming back if possible, either April 30th or May 7th, and present the kind of the modifications to your application?
Yep. That'd be, I think if we could get stuff done by the 30th.
Adam, are you okay if we make that a regular meeting, at least for this item?
Yeah, that's no problem. We can do that.
Okay, council, if you're so inclined, I'd entertain a motion. I think it would be ideal if we could make a motion to table this item until April 30th, our April 30th regular meeting.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
So moved.
Item 10 to date specific, April 30th.
Okay, Danielle started the motion first, so we'll give the motion to her. Brian, are you seconding it?
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, those in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
Aye.
And Brian,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and Jimmy.
Aye.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. That's tabled until April 30th. Start time of that meeting, Adam?
Probably 5 o'clock.
All right, let's say 5 o'clock, just so the applicant knows.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
It could be 4. If that changes, we'll let Kurt know.
Thank you. Number 11. Not sure who's doing this one. Ray.
There we go.
Are you doing this one, Ray?
Yes.
Okay, I just unmuted you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes.
All right, this is item number 11. It's a conditional use permit request. And the request is for Washington County, Utah Temple. I have just 2 slides here. I'm going to advance the first and then talk a little bit about it. It's a conditional use permit to develop a temple or religious facility. And the site is generally located at the intersection of 3000 East and 1580 South. The applicant is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There are representatives who spoke at Planning Commission through Zoom who would like to speak tonight. One of them is James Rich. He's a senior project manager for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and also Travis Nibet with NWL, which is an architectural firm. And then there's 2 other gentlemen, Brent Morgan and Greg Bodero. The zoning here on this property is A1, where it's located. And again, here's 3000 East, and then here's the other road. And then this is showing where the temple's at. The site itself is just almost 15 acres. It's 14.7 acres. And the use in the agricultural zone is an allowed use to have a religious facility there. That's section 10.5.1. And the height of the temple, I'm looking at section 10.5.2. A conditional use permit is required for any structure that's greater than 40 feet, and this will definitely be greater than 40 feet. It's proposed to be a 3-story building. It's actually 3 stories over a raised basement. And the 3 stories is about 70 feet to about here. Hopefully you can see the arrow. And then from this point up, that begins at 182 feet at the base. And then you go up to the spire, and the ultimate height is 230 feet. Again, this is a temple. It has 3 stories, and it's about 96,000 square feet. There's
Great.
also,
Reb,
yes.
will you just say those heights again? Like, use your cursor and show me like what height is where?
Maybe this
Oh,
will
right
help.
there. Yeah.
So go up to almost 68, 70 feet.
Sorry.
Pardon me?
Sorry, that's really obvious. I shouldn't have asked that question.
So almost 70 feet to the 3 stories. And then you go up, you can see 129, 181, and then ultimately up top of Moroni here, 230
Gotcha.
feet. I've covered most of it. There's also a maintenance building, and that's single story, 1,600 square feet. That's separate. And in the staff report, I've given a lot of details. I won't read them all, but on the second page, I've kind of elaborated on the materials itself. And they're also in your packet. The Zoom presentation was short, but there's a lot of graphics that show and call out the materials of the temple. The operation typically is Tuesday through Saturday, 4:30 in the morning till 12:30 or midnight. But in reality, most of the activities end about 9:30, and then that's custodial staff that's there from 9:30 till midnight. I have a long section on parking where it's been analyzed, section on setbacks, everything meets and exceeds the requirements. And I won't read the other pages, but staff has gone through the breakdown of the conditional use permit in all of the mitigations and is comfortable with it and does recommend approval. The Planning Commission does recommend approval to the City Council, and that was a 7-0 vote in favor of it. And that basically is it. Again, you can see the entire site, the temple here. I don't know why on this slide I had the temple showing here. That's not just a grass area, but that should be in your packet. I apologize for that.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. And the applicant made sure that I had included that. We had updated it in Planning Commission, but somehow I left it out there. I apologize. But you can see the parking, you can see all of the landscaping. One thing we talked about a little bit is access is not to the grounds off the 3000 East. It's here where you have a landscape median for entering and exiting. So that concludes staff's comments. If you have questions for myself or the applicants who'd also like to be acknowledged tonight, there is a narrative from them in your report that's 6 pages long that gives a lot of detail about the temple itself.
Ray, thank you. Would the applicant like to say something first? James Rich or any of the others that are with him? Travis, Greg?
Sure, this is James. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Ray. We don't all need to speak. I think we're all on the call, just in most of the people mentioned are our consulting staff in case there were questions that came up that the council would like to discuss. So we are available to answer questions, but just wanted to say we're grateful to be considering this project in St. George. We're grateful to the council for seeing the case tonight and working with us to get it on so quickly. We are working with the city and the engineering staff and the planning staff to make the project work well for the city and for the church. And we just really look forward to having the project move forward and be a great benefit to the community. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer them tonight, and we would appreciate your affirmative vote. Thank you.
James, thank you. We'll ask the council if they have any questions. I just want to say thank you very much, and please pass along our gratitude for having the opportunity to welcome this kind of a site, this kind of a building. It looks beautifully designed. It's gorgeous, the presentation, the landscaping. Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to consider this. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
I have one question, Mayor. I was just looking at it just for people who are non-members or not participating, like going inside of this temple. Is it welcoming for people to walk around the grounds? I mean, I'm assuming it probably is, but I'd just like to hear from the applicants, how are they assuming that people will come and walk around these grounds?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it will be a nice amenity to the community. The immediate grounds around the temple will be secured when the temple's not in operation. Although the greater, the parking areas will be open. The central plaza, though, when the temple's in operation, will be open to anybody who would like to come to the grounds. But it will be, once it's dedicated, it will be limited for those who can go inside. We will have a community open house available for all community members who would like to see the inside of the temple to come visit and observe and take a tour before we dedicate the temple.
Nice. I just have 2 more comments, Mayor. So I was looking at this parking area and I hadn't gotten to the picture with the landscape yet. So I texted the mayor and said, that's a lot of pavement. And it is, that's a lot of pavement. One thing that I would really like to commend the LDS Church for is once I got to this landscape, I mean, that's incredible landscape. And in St. George and in places like Vegas, these big parking lots are a huge problem. They create heat island effect. And obviously with this being out in areas where there's agriculture, we don't want to raise the heat index. And I think if anything, all this landscape is going to, be a fantastic addition right there. It's going to be really beautiful. I think this building and this landscape, everything about it is really stunning and really beautiful. But I just want to make one comment because I know we're living in a predominantly LDS space. And I think we just need to be fair when we pass things like this, that we be honest with ourselves about this is 230 feet in the air. And if it was a different religious organization coming with the exact same thing, would we be okay with this being out in a residential area? I think it's going to be a fantastic addition. So I'm not being critical of it at all. I just want us to remember that if we ever have other religions, I just want to put that out there that, you know, although we may be predominantly of one religion, I don't want people to feel like we're favoring this over any other religions, that, you know, we would view a temple or a, you know, sacred space from another religion as welcome in our spaces also. So maybe that didn't need to be stated, but I just wanted to share it.
No, I understand, Danielle, and I think that's important because while I have the feeling that this this temple will bless many lives, including those that maybe aren't of this faith, I think that's important, and I would hope that we would consider any other faiths, temple or church or synagogue. I would certainly hope so. Some of the symbolism that, you know, different faiths have about the kind of the reaching heavenward of a spire, that's shared by, you know, many faiths, and so I would hope that we would view this and others similarly as a beacon to those people who go there and who see it as something holy or something inspiring, something that helps lift them up in various ways. So I think it's a perfectly appropriate comment, Danielle.
Thanks. I totally agree. And I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be really beautiful.
I'll add to that, to Danielle's comment is, you know, one thing that makes, just if you speak about it outside of the religion, one thing that makes it easy to approve projects from the LDS church or temples is, you know, every single one that they've done is always a very high quality product, always very taken care of in the highest manner. So it always comes in as a great addition to the community, you know, as an amenity. So that's just one thought on that. I also got a question on the conceptual plan. So that they have the drive-in from the north. Are those going to remain fields on either side, or is that undetermined? Just wondering.
Good question. James, can you comment on that?
Sure. So the greater part of this land where this temple is, and for quite a ways up to the road where Lynn's is, you know, up to the north, is all church-owned land that's owned by Property Reserve, one of the church's landholding and development entities, and will be developed. And so Suburban Land Reserve, who is the church's development arm, is also looking at planning the rest of that land, and it will most likely be residential land, but it's not finalized yet, and they're working on land plans right now, but eventually it's expected to be developed most likely as residential.
Thank you, James. Any other questions or comments, council?
Mayor, I guess we did have that one letter of concern from a citizen regarding the commercial vehicle use. And so I guess we could just address that. And I don't think it'll be any different than the other, you know, the schools and stuff that we've built out there. I'm sure that the building department will be respectful and try to keep the big trucks moving slowly and safely through the residential spaces.
Right. And while it will be a big project, of course, there is a fair bit of room that they have to spread things out. And no matter what would be developed, there would be similar, vehicles and activity. So I think that those things will be mitigated as best as possible. And again, to Greg's comment, I think this organization, as well as others, they seem to be very responsive to community wishes and to trying to make sure that it's a project and a process that everyone can not only live with, but feels good about. Any comments you would make along those lines, James, Rich?
Well, just to echo what you said, I appreciate the vote of confidence, and that is true. I mean, the church is very much interested in being a good community citizen and lifting the areas they come to. And so, yeah, absolutely, whatever we do here and whatever happens with the balance of the development, it would be intended that it would be bettering the community. So absolutely true on that point.
Any other comments, council? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion regarding this conditional use permit.
I'll make a motion that we consider the approval, the conditional use permit to develop the Washington County Utah Temple, generally located at 3000 East and 1580 South.
I'll second.
So you've made the motion not to consider, but to approve it, right,
To
Greg?
approve, excuse me,
As has been presented.
as has been presented.
Okay, so Greg makes the motion, Danielle seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, and starting with Danielle. Danielle?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
The motion is approved unanimously. James, again, thank you, and please thank your staff, all those working with you for their efforts in this, and our staff will continue to work as closely with you as necessary.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next, number 12.
Okay. Number 12 is a request to approve a preliminary plat for an 80-lot residential subdivision called Desert Canyons. Site is located approximately 3900 East Desert Canyons Parkway. Property is 28 acres for a density of 2.86 dwelling units an acre. Zone is PDR. So this is the hillside, the first hillside one we looked at just recently. There's the subdivision right there. I'm just going to point this out that with this subdivision, they have provided kind of a timeline. There's a proposed park that sits about right here, and then it'll probably have some open space area here tied to the park. So they have provided a timeline with this subdivision for development of that park. And so they put as part of this subdivision approval and development, they'll come up with the conceptual plan. And then over their proposal is over their next 4 preliminary plats in this area after the Desert Cliffs. By the 5th one, they will have that park built and constructed right there. So this is something we've been working with the developer over a long while, trying to establish a park out here. And so they provided us a timeline to develop that park. So I just wanted to lead off with that. So this is a little different. There's some changes from what was in your packet, but you can see right here, first of all, there is the the rockfall hazard line. They have put this road right here within it, but kept it on the very fringe of these 2 lots here. You can see right through there. So they'll have that. They also have a sedimentation basin right here to collect the runoff from the hillside and hopefully collect all the silt and sand and debris that comes off and then put it into the storm drain system. This area will be owned and maintained by an association just to help protect these homes. You can see here on this, as it extends to the south, they have that hillside area all the way along here. They have another little sedimentation basin here that will collect runoff from the hillside and then take it into a ditch that comes out here. And that's the same with here. You'll see on that 3rd detail section, they have a cross section here, kind of what they want to build against that hillside to collect that and protect the homes and bring the water in right there. These are double fronting lots here, so they'll have a 10-foot landscape strip that will be owned and maintained by their HOA. and a 6-foot privacy wall right here. Detention basin here that the HOA will own. Here's the Fort Pierce wash right here. The development does lie within the erosion hazard boundary. I think it comes about right through here. So they'll have to provide an erosion hazard study that will indicate the mitigation that's required along the Fort Pierce to protect that, as they did with Desert Bluffs and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Church right here. And I think that is, oh, and so when this went to Hillside, I'll just bring that up. I mean, to Planning Commission, it did. There were 5 who voted in favor of it, 2 who did not. Their concern again was the proximity of this lot and this lot to that rockfall line. They had some discussion about it. Ultimately, it was approved. Those who approved it felt like that it had gone through a study. The engineers have looked at it, felt like we should trust the engineers that they have followed and determined that that is the erosion hazard line. So there was some dissent as far as some of the Planning Commission members.
Thank you, Wes. Questions, council? And then
Yeah.
we'd be happy to hear from the applicant as well, but go ahead, council.
I have a question. So Wes, what is our determination for what can go in those rockfall hazard lines? Because even if we put the road in that, you know, going up Banded Hills, you can go up Banded Hills Road every single day, and every day there's new rockfall on the road because we built the road in the, you know, in a rockfall space. So I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but it is a concern to me.
We did have some discussion about that. Natalie Larson brought up 1450 South and the rockfall that's coming off of Stonecliff.
Yeah.
You know, we discussed that. One of the things that was pointed out was, you know, the backside of Stonecliff is basically a vertical wall. And so, you know, there really is no run out area. When rocks drop, they're almost on the sidewalk. So there is a little difference between that example and this, where this is a slope. Just to give you some, I'll show you right here. So when this development was approved, originally they had some lots right up here on this east side of the road here. The rockfall hazard line came through the lot, so they proposed some mitigation that the council ultimately requested that the lots be removed and that the road go through, be the buffer. So on the other side of the hill, there is that road here, and the rockfall line does go within the road. And so really it was just keeping the lots outside of the rockfall hazard line. But that's a good question.
I'll just make a comment on that. I agree with Danielle. You know, we're so close to just being right outside of that line. Now, I don't want to disagree with the engineers that make those statements, but if we're so close, why don't we just move it back a little bit and change the plat up just a little bit, and so that it's not even an issue? I think I just don't know why we want to mess with it when we don't have to, and it's so close.
Mayor,
Yeah, John?
just a comment to what Councilmember Larkin is saying and Councilmember MacArthur. Putting a street in between the lots still does create a problem, and we just recently had a claim come in. We don't believe it's our responsibility, but on Red Cliffs Drive, right there where the cut is, there's a fence along that cut that kind of stops some of the rock fall from coming down. But that rock fall, a rock did make it to the fence, and a car hit the rock, and so there was a claim. So I don't want you to walk to the council to get the impression from staff that a roadway is somehow a buffer from rock fall hazards, because people do drive on roadways.
I think it's also fair, though, to say, I'm not sure we'd have a lot of our current subdivisions or roads if we didn't sometimes build roads right adjacent to rocks.
No, and that also is a good assessment. We do have conversations with people and have had many throughout the years that say that we have to tell them that there are some rocks that are going to come down hillsides, and we don't know where they're going to come down or when they're going to come down. And so it's just, you know, that's it. Unfortunately, living in an environment that we do, that's going to happen. We do everything we can to try to mitigate those. And that's why the applicant has consulted with an engineer on this. And that's why on that previous plat you saw, it was conditional on an engineer coming back and giving their opinion on them.
So Sean, from a risk standpoint, you feel okay with this and what we've done to mitigate it and the engineer's assessment?
Yes, I don't think that we can totally eliminate rockfall in a lot of these areas. And in fact, in some of the areas along Dixie Drive where there's not even much of a slope, you still get, after a rain, debris that comes down the hillside and onto the sidewalk. We're going to have that throughout the city.
I mean, we built City Hall and our police station on a hill, and we have dirt and rock coming down the side of the hill onto 200 East every time it rains.
Well, I guess my comment to that would be, Mayor, that like sometimes we learn and then we do it a little bit better. So we've been building all these things that maybe weren't built in the best location, and maybe we do it a little bit better because we know better.
Yep, I agree. I don't know how many rocks or boulders have come down into your neighborhood, Jimmy, but there's probably some people that would say we shouldn't have built there. But anyway, I have the same problem in Bloomington, on the west side of Bloomington. We got a lot of rocks that come down, a lot of boulders that come down those hills. So anyway, I don't know. It's just how much risk are you willing to live with, I guess.
And Mayor, I see that Kurt Gordon wants to speak to that. So
yeah,
I don't know if you missed that or not.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Go ahead, Kurt.
All right, so thanks for the comments. There are a lot of situations in St. George where roadways and developments have been built right up under a cliff. For example, the airport, the road that goes up to the side of the airport, there really wasn't anywhere else to put a road but at the base of the cliff. This situation is quite different, though. There's quite a large, what they call run out area, which is a pretty large flat buffer between the steep hillsides and where the roadway is going to be. Most of the boulders that you see out there have probably been there for, I don't know, 5,000 or 10,000 years, so the rockfall study was based on where those ancient boulders are, but there's quite a large buffer area or flat area between where the steep hillsides are and where the roads would be planned or are planned. So it's not comparable to the airport access road for 1450 really at all.
And so, Mayor, just to clarify what I was saying is I didn't want anything from the staff to lead the council to think that we use the roadway as a buffer for the rocks, for the homes. The engineers have looked at this, and there's an area down there before it gets to the roadway. Unlike that steep cliff that Kurt talked about with the old airport road, Tech Ridge Drive, and 1450 South, where if we looked at it, we might had them contour that a little differently now. But here the engineer is saying there's some run out, as Kurt says, at the bottom of the hill before you get to the road. I just didn't want anyone to leave the meeting thinking that we use the roadway as a run out area or buffer area.
I see what you're saying. Thanks for clarifying that.
Mayor, could I also interject that the geologist that did this report also built into his report a buffer. So there's additional buffer area in the report that the engineers built into that rockfall. So the actual rockfall line isn't where you see the green line. It's further toward the hill. I might also mention that there's also a drainage ditch that separates the roadway from the rest of the rockfall area as well. So it's a different situation. But we would be happy to continue this item if you'd like and address those concerns.
Council, any other questions for Kurt or for staff? Jimmy, looked like you had.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I do want to just show you one other change. One other change is they did stub a road right here. We worked with them as Planning Commission recommended, and as we kind of worked with them. So they did show a road right here that will tie into future development here. On your original one, this was just shown as a lot, but we worked with the developer to get a road through here so that we could get some interconnectivity between the two subdivisions and, provide cross access between them. So just something to point out also.
Thank you, Wes. Jimmy?
If you're okay, Mayor, I'm ready to make a.
Yes. Hang on.
Jimmy.
Am I unmuted now?
There you go.
So I'm ready to make a motion
Go ahead.
that we, the approval of the preliminary plat for the Desert Cliffs at Desert Canyons. Is that good enough?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve, as has been presented. There's a second by, the motion was made by Jimmy, seconded by Brian. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Greg,
On this one, there's so much land out there and I'm a nay.
and Danielle.
Nay.
And I will vote to break the tie. I vote aye. So the motion carries. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate your work, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a one-lot commercial subdivision called Sun River Commons Phase 6. Site is located at approximately Arrowhead Canyon Drive and Sun River Parkway. This is part of the Sun River development. So you can look right here. This is the parcel where the credit union will go. And this is, so they have, their access comes right here off of Arrowhead Canyon Drive. They'll be required to finish improving Arrowhead Canyon Drive here. There is a trail that comes along the villas at Sun River here. It's master planned to go up through here. So they'll build that in lieu of a sidewalk along here to extend that master plan trail. This access here also provides access to the hotel and other developments over in here. We'll just need to verify that cross access easements are provided. And if they are not, we'll just need them to provide those. And then this is kind of a community detention basin that was built years ago. Takes runoff from a lot of this area over here, comes in, piped in here, and then it goes across here. It'll need to remain as it provides detention for this area. So we'll just need to verify that there is an easement provided with this subdivision plat for that detention basin.
Do we think that building that they're proposing will fit there?
You'd look at it and say it doesn't, but you'll see, I think it's next time you'll see a zone change application to show you the building and so forth, and it does fit in there.
Okay. Council, questions for Wes? Is the applicant present? And any comments from the applicant? Hang on. I'm not seeing any requests in the chat room. All right, then, council, if there are no comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, that we approve agenda item 13 for Sun River Commons Phase 6 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Danielle with a second by Greg. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye, and I'll ask Jimmy first.
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and Danielle.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve an amended preliminary plat for a 7-lot residential subdivision called the Enclave of Valdera. Site is located on Petroglyph Drive at approximately 4,700 south and 4,700 north in the Ledges development. Property is 4.34 acres for a density of 1.6 dwelling units, and acre zoning is PDR. Again, it's part of the Valdera or the Ledges development. So here's SR 18 right here. This subdivision is like right there. Looked bigger on my screen when this was made, so sorry about that. Anyway, a little blow up closer. So this is kind of the last piece of what's called Valdera Estates in that. When this was approved by council, this was a planning area that had a certain number of units associated with it. When they developed Valdera Estates and all of this area in here, they had this little area left, and there were only 6 units left available based on the original zoning approval for the Ledges. And so they only came in with a preliminary plat for 6 lots. However, these 2 lots here have merged into one, and that has freed up 1 lot here, or 1 pad here. And so they're requesting just to add 1 more pad right there on their subdivision. And so that's why it's amended plat. Originally it was approved with these 6, but with the merger of the lots, they're requesting 1 additional lot.
All right. Any questions or concerns, council? Is the applicant here? Is there anything they'd wish to say? If so, if you'd put that in the chat.
I am here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. Would you just state your name for the record?
Alan Wright.
Thank you, Alan. Anything you'd wish to say about this request?
Yes, there's actually an additional free unit density because there's been a couple other lots combined, but this would be the last request of density that we have. I think it fits appropriately. It's a fairly large piece, and we appreciate your consideration. If you have any questions, I'm free to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Any questions, council? Doesn't look like it. Then I'd be ready for a motion.
I'll go ahead, Mayor, and make the motion to approve the amended preliminary plat for the Enclave at Valdera to include the additional lot.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with the second by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And Jimmy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I don't have any appointments. Jimmy, I need to get that number from you again because I lost it. So I'll do it for next time.
Okay.
Reports from council or from the city manager. Adam, do you have anything to report?
No, not today.
All right, Danielle.
Yeah,
You might want to mention that one item, Danielle.
the Bluff Street.
Yes.
Yeah, I have that on my list. So the Active Transportation Committee has been working hard on a few of our trails, looking at the Southern Parkway for one, but another is the connectivity of doing an underpass under Bluff Street. So it would be taking the trail basically under Bluff as you come along there by the new development that Gilbert Jennings is doing. So it's like you go underneath from the trail there and you would go under and connect over to the trail where it exists on the other side. UDOT would really like for us to do this and to partner with them. They have currently $1 million set aside for this project, and they're estimating the project to be, I mean, the estimate, they're still working on estimates, but the current estimate is like somewhere in the 1.4 to 1.8 range. So it's just something for us to think about. It's the reason why they would really like for us to do it is because it's a huge connector north and south for a trail system for people to be able to commute. But also every time somebody uses the pedestrian button there, it really delays the traffic for that whole intersection. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to cross that intersection, but that's one of those, like, you better be hoofing it pretty fast, because I believe that they give 1 second for every 4 feet that you have to cross. So it's like you actually have to go really fast. So anybody with any sort of special physical needs, it's really challenging to get across there. And you know, just also the connectivity of our trail system for equity for people who are using, you know, basically different forms of transportation besides cars. This would be a big connector. It also would be great for what we plan to do in the future for Main Street. So it's something for us to think about. If we don't partner with them and do it now and use that money, we're looking at probably 5 years before it happens, because that what they would do if we don't want to partner with them is they would just wait to do that when we do a reconstruction of the bottom of Bluff Street. And they said that that's looking like, you know, minimum, that's probably 5 years out at this point. So it's something for us to talk about. There's also some MPO money that we could talk about. The MPO has this extra money that they're trying to decide where to place it. And maybe a small portion of that could, you know, be used for this project also. So, you know, something for us to think about and to talk about, especially when we have UDOT really on our side and they've got money to back it up and they're willing to go forward. So we currently have Aaron Baker. He's working on a conceptual design, and maybe next meeting we could have some more conversation about it. Do you want to say anything else about that, Mayor?
Just briefly, I'll echo what Danielle said. I've had some, and so has Adam. Adam and I met with Rick Torgerson. Actually, gosh, it's been probably a couple months ago now. But we talked with him about this, and really the South Bluff project that they hope to do at some point. It will be nothing like the North Bluff project, but they would be doing some like decel or turn lanes, you know, right turn lanes, stuff like that. This was maybe going to be a part of that, but they did not get their, the legislature decided not to bond for a bunch of additional road money and big road projects. And so it's at least 2026 before they even could possibly do anything on South Bluff. And that would include this. But because they basically identified $1 million, as Danielle said, that they could probably put towards something. If they're willing to do that, I would just kind of propose initially, along Danielle's point, that we try to call Jimmy yesterday, or whenever that was, yesterday. But I spoke to it briefly then. And also, I think it may be hard right now, but we could still tee it up with the county regarding some tourism funds. Because while this is active transportation, it's also tourism. And so I would say if we could, between UDOT, MPO, and maybe county tourism, I think we could come up with hopefully that additional, you know, $500,000 to $800,000, like we did with the Fourth South project under I-15. So council, if you're of that kind of a mind, I think we should try to pursue that. And that way, I mean, I think we're talking earliest being able to do it otherwise is 2026, and it could be longer, it could be 10 years. So anyway, do you all feel good about us trying to approach it that way and see what we can come up with in terms of funding?
Yeah, leverage that
I'm
money.
good.
Jimmy? Yeah.
Yeah, leverage that money while we can. That's a great idea, I think.
Okay. Danielle, other things?
Yeah, just quickly, the Dove Center is in need of sanitation supplies, so just a note to that. The Art Museum is doing virtual tours, so that's kind of cool. If you want to share that, people can go through the Art Museum virtually right now. The Children's Museum is working super hard fixing a bunch of things that were kind of overdue projects, so they're getting things done in their time down. And then I just wanted to mention, I had the opportunity to go to the animal shelter today and do a tour. And we have a really impressive operation there and super impressive staff. What they've done with the facility there and what they're doing with the animals. And I think that there's, you know, that we actually all got a letter from someone saying that there's been all these people dumping off their animals. I just want to clarify that that actually has not happened. I mean, they're prepared for if it does happen, and they, of course, we certainly hope it doesn't, but the truth is they are actually low in numbers right now, and they've been able to place a lot of the animals in homes. So that's a positive note to end on. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. That's great. Jimmy has a little bit of history with the animal shelter because he was assigned to it during a tenuous time. So
Yeah.
anyway, Jimmy, any comments?
Just to follow up on that from Danielle, also Bed and Biscuits. We have, because nobody's going anywhere, nobody's leaving their animals for the weekend or overnight, so they're very slow, and there's some additional capacity there. And I know that they've already spoke with the animal shelter. So if that were to happen, there's some additional capacity at Bed and Biscuits to help out. And we actually applied for a grant through, I can't remember who through, to help with some of the cost of that, if it comes to that, with people, you know, turning in their pets and the animal shelter gets overwhelmed. So
cool. So let's go to you, Jimmy. Any updates that you have for us?
Just a couple things. We had our Switch Point board meeting. Obviously, some emergency funding and stuff has come through, and the cities we come through with that 50,000, which I don't know if it has come through yet, but they're counting on that to make sure things keep going. They did apply for and get the payroll protection loan, which was crucial. And so there's some things in the work there. We're in a pretty good position right now as far as the emergency funding at Switch Point. A couple of the concerns are, and I'm not going to say a whole lot because Shirlene's more of the expert on this, but poor Shirlene's been through the grinder on some of the things trying to get funding, and it's just been. We're going to have to talk about this again between Adam and Sean about how it's not necessarily even right now about how much money is being allocated, but it's how it's being allocated. And it's like we're trying to reinvent the wheel. And I'm not sure why they're doing that at the state level. Especially in this time when we're in a crisis. In 2 or 3 days, they were able to get the PPL loan, and yet we can't figure out how to divvy out the money from the state level in an emergent situation. There's some real concerns on divvying that out through the association of from the 5 counties, just because of how slow they are to respond and the cut right off the top that they have to take, or that they do take. So there's some of those things that the board would like us to discuss and see what we can do with our state legislators to make sure that we don't even want to complain about parity and and how much is allocated, but parity and just more simpleness on how we divvy that out, instead of trying to make it so complicated. And I'm sure you've heard from Shirlene, as she spent multiple hours doing one thing and then they switched direction and multiple hours doing another, and then basically just said, now figure out how to cut it all even more, and then let's do something different. And it's been a little frustrating for her, I know. So anyways, on that note, all is well there at the Switch Point shelter for now. Trying to think of what else I got. I think that's about it.
Hey, Jimmy, I think they're going to do kind of a virtual fundraiser soon. Is that right?
Yes, they're going to do because our fundraising breakfast, where we raised so much money last year, obviously is canceled. We're working on, and thanks for reminding me on that. We're working on doing a virtual breakfast, and people are reaching out, understanding that the shelter is an essential thing, and that we're probably hurting as far as fundraising. People are reaching out and wanting to participate. So I'll get you some more information. When I say Shirlene and I will get you some information on that too. So
Jimmy, I don't know if they mentioned it because I'm not sure if it's happened yet. So, but I just have to tell you, there's so many great stories. And I'm sure that Jimmy heard some, but Tom and Dorothy here that own Cliffside, did she talk about that, Jimmy? What they offer?
She did not talk about that.
So they called me the other day. they're struggling. Obviously, they're trying to see if they can put a sign up at the bottom of Tech Ridge Drive and, Bluff Street Boulevard right there. And we're trying to see if we can work with them. In fact, John Willis, if you're still on the call, I need to talk to you about that. And anyway, he said, can you connect me with someone, Mayor? We just want to help. And I have some friends, they want to donate the food, and I have some employees, and we're hoping to get some of that federal money that you just talked about, the what do they call it? The PP.
Yeah, payroll protection loan.
Yeah, payroll, PPL, PPA. Yeah. And so they said, we would like to make a bunch of food for whoever needs it the most. And I said, well, you need to talk to Switchpoint. So I got him connected with Carol, and I called Carol, Jimmy, the other night, and she was like almost in tears. She said, oh my gosh, we could so use this. And so I don't know. I assume they've talked maybe by now. But isn't that cool? Here you've got a business that's struggling. I think if they're not closed, they're almost closed. And they're trying to use their people, pay their employees to make food for Switchpoint and the people that need it through Switchpoint. So just one of a million stories of people and businesses that are, really working hard to try to help. So anyway, thanks, Jimmy, for you and Charlene for doing that important work at Switchpoint. And I know the state dollars, we're probably looking at Switchpoint getting even less than they got last year.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. So we need to do all we can. I appreciate the council being willing to help. I don't know if we've cut the check. I hope if we haven't, we will shortly.
We hadn't as of Monday or Tuesday. They hadn't seen it. So, but that's okay. They know we're good for it. So they're using some of the other money that they've gotten to cover, but they've allocated what they know is coming. So
maybe Adam and Deanna can speak to that, or at least they can follow up with it.
That's fine.
All right.
My last thing, this is my fire station.
Okay.
And along the lines of projects that need to be done, as the subdivisions are being done on 2000 South, and that sidewalk is going to be done from 3000 all the way past the South Mountain Community Church and that new subdivision.
Yep.
There's just now a short distance that before school starts next year, if it starts next year,
it better.
We really need to try to get that sidewalk in for safety reasons.
Are you talking about in front of Chad Drake's?
And Jared. And then I can't remember the people that own the other home. It's for sale right now, but it'll just be those three homes. Obviously they're big lots, so it's quite a distance, but I'll start saying that every meeting. That's why it's my fire station, if you get my drift.
Well, maybe we could put out a sign or something or rename 2000 South Jimmy Hughes Drive or something.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, I know that, obviously we're in the middle of the budget proceedings, but I think, that is important. We did include the Bloomington Hills for the same reason. It would be nice if we can try to see what we could do there about acquiring the right of way if we don't already have it, and putting something in. Can you work with Cameron on that?
Yep, I've made a note of that, and we'll follow up on it.
Thank you.
I was also thinking, and I don't know if Cameron's still on.
He's not.
Okay, can we follow up? I want to make sure that the traffic signal for Heritage Elementary that's on Riverside Drive, and what is that? Morningside, that connects there by Riverside Elementary or Heritage Elementary. I want to make sure that that's on target too for an August 1st timeframe. As Jimmy said and Danielle earlier, I think probably the most important projects we do, other than water, power, sewer, would be related to school and getting kids to school safely. So there's three things. The project we approved earlier, that award for Bloomington Hills Drive, this one on 2000, and the traffic signal. I know it's been approved already in terms of budget, but just want to make sure if we're going to do them, let's try to do them before August 1st.
Mayor, I can jump in on that Morningside traffic signal. I cross that street every day. I run across that street every day, looking both ways and trying to dodge traffic with families and kids. Because that neighborhood goes down, we all go down to the trail there. And, since we're all quarantined, well, not quarantined, but, with this current situation, we're all using those trails quite a bit. So it is definitely needed there.
Okay, well, Adam's taking notes. I know he's a good note taker, so we'll follow up with those, Jimmy and Greg. Let's see, Brian, any reports from you?
Nope, not this time.
Thanks for helping on the golf thing. We had a meeting the other day, and obviously the rest of you know the result of that. So thank you for your help.
You're welcome.
Greg, anything from you?
Sure, a couple of things I'll report on. The first one is the Dinosaur Museum. I'm happy to report that they were rewarded some funds. They applied for the PPP and they got accepted for that. So they're hiring back all their staff starting April 20th, and they will be doing projects to improve the museum. And they hope to get opened as soon as it's safe and possible. So that's going really good for them. The Red Desert Reserve, so the HCP, that preliminary new agreement is out there and getting circulated, so you should see that shortly. What else? I'll give you this one. This is, so my business is with real estate and hospitality properties. So today I was on a call with the CEO of Wyndham and the CEO of Best Western of the United States. And they're at, nationally, hotels are at anywhere from 8 to 16% of normal. So they're getting hit very hard. And they're making a lot of new programs and things to make it so it's safe for people to come. They're definitely working on those things. So I just thought I'd bring that up. That's a thing that's heavily affected in our area, the hotels. And so those are just a couple of reports.
That seems to jive with the local percentages that I've heard, Greg. 15% is what I heard from one of our hoteliers. There's also, thanks for bringing that up, it jogged my memory. Kevin Lewis did a really nice presentation the other day, wasn't it, Jimmy? It was at DTech, and we've got a link for that. If any of you want to see it, it's not a fun presentation. It's all kind of scary news, but we could send you that link. It just talks about tourism in our area and a little bit beyond. So if you want, I'll send that out. Let's see, Adam, I think you said no already. Anything, Sean, from you? I know we don't need a closed session today, but anything else from you, Sean?
No, Mayor.
All right, I don't have anything else, Council. I just appreciate everybody's help. It does feel like we've turned a corner here. I certainly hope so. And thanks for all you're doing. And we'll keep trying to keep the communication lines open. In the meantime, between now and the next meeting, which again will be 2 weeks, it's really weird. I don't know that I've seen, how many of you have I not seen in person for a long time? It's really weird, but y'all look good. So we'll keep doing what we're doing and share the information that we have. We'll get the 2 parks open we mentioned, and the third one, Pioneer Park on Monday, with the notations, the signage and stuff that we mentioned earlier. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Brian. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thanks. See y'all.
See ya. Thanks.
Yeah, buddy.
See y'all later.